Episode 60 was with Ethan Gruska.
Adam was able to talk to him over the phone. Not only is Ethan a musician, he's also a magician. So check it out.
Make sure to check us out on YouTube and Facebook at Bringing It Backwards and on Instagram and Twitter at bringinbackpod.
Follow us, please.
We're Bringing It Backwards with Ethan Gruska.
Hey, Adam, how are you?
Good, man. How are you?
I'm good. Just, I was saying to Bree, same as yesterday, same as the day before, same as the day before that. So, it's just weird times.
Yeah. So, Ethan, tell me about where did you grow up in? Did you grow up in Los Angeles?
I did. Yeah, I grew up in the Valley in LA, and both my parents grew up here as well, and even my mom's parents are from here. So,
oh wow.
So it kind of goes far back, actually. And my wife is from here, and her family's here. So yeah, I'm very LA, especially now.
Yeah, I'm from San Diego. My wife and I are from San Diego, and there's just so many you don't meet a whole lot of people that have multiple generations growing up here. You know what I mean? Even I'm sure it was the same with Los Angeles.
Totally. I mean, I think multiple generations anywhere is kind of bizarre. I mean, my mom's mom, was born here as well. So that's 3.
Yeah, wow, that's crazy. So, Ethan, tell me about how you got into music.
Well, I think it's just started with just loving songs, and hearing the Beatles when I was a kid, and I think just being. Well, the other thing is a lot of my family does music. I have almost everybody in my family besides my mom does music professionally. My mom has a real job; she's a therapist, and but yeah, like my dad, my sister, my uncles, my grandpa. There's a lot of, and my aunt. There's just so much music in my family, and my dad, had a studio at his house, and he was a composer, and so there were musicians coming in and out. So I think that, as much as I could have tried, which I didn't really, to sort of get away from music, it just was so a part of my life. And then when I was maybe 14, I started, I was really loving music, listening to music. I was like, I want to get better as a player. But every time I would sort of sit down at an instrument, I would just end up writing something instead of practicing. Oh. So I think that I started mostly as a writer, and then just through trying to write more complicated or cooler songs, just slowly getting better as a player too.
Yeah. What was the first instrument you learned how to play?
Well, the first instrument, my dad bought me like a little tiny Fender or a Squier Strat when I was 7, and I think I learned a chord or two. So that's the first instrument I ever held in my hand. But the first instrument that I really sort of started learning was piano. And that's still the only instrument that I sort of really understand. Everything else, I play a lot of instruments, but it's more just sort of instinctual and I don't know theoretically much of what I'm doing, but on piano, I feel pretty comfortable to be able to talk about exactly what's going on.
Yeah. That's cool. So you'd pick up the guitar, piano, or whatever, and you'd just start kind of composing your own stuff versus trying to learn a whatever Beatles song or whatever.
Exactly. We had this book at my house that was a Beatles fake book, and it just had the simplest sort of chord chart for each song. And so usually I would I would want to learn Strawberry Fields, and I still wasn't that great at chords because I'm just learning, and I would do the first 3, and then when I'd get to the 4th one, I would make a mistake, and so that would trigger something I'll just go between that 3rd and 4th chord, and the 4th being a mistake, and that's kind of cool, and then that would sort of just turn into. I mean, a lot of my early musical experiments were just based off of mistakes and accidents, and I still feel that way. I still feel even when I know so much more of what I'm doing, it's the things that I'm most attracted to are the things that are sort of accidental and surprise me. I mean, I think that, doing music as a job, it's easy to get like jaded and unsurprised by things. So it's just tricking yourself into being mystified no matter what, because it is. It's like super infinite.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you.
Sorry, we're fostering a dog right now, and she's chewing on the rug because she's a crazy little puppy. So I'm just getting her off.
That's awesome. We actually just during this quarantine we adopted a dog, which was awesome. Man. Yeah, it was quite a feat to do. I mean, I think a lot of people are adopting dogs and fostering dogs right now, or animals, just because everyone's kind of inside. So it took us a minute to find one. Like every time this dog's super cute on like Pet Finder or whatever, and we'd call or email the person, and like 9 out of 10 times the dog was already being adopted or gone, and we finally found one, and we just scooped him up right away.
We got lucky because this dog that we fostered, it's so sad, she had to get eye surgery, and so my sister-in-law was fostering her, and she has another dog that they own. Mm-hmm. And so because of the surgery, she had to wear a cone so that she couldn't play with the other dog. So we just offered to take it over. And then, she got her cone off yesterday, and so we're just, we're loving having her. We loved her with the cone too, but the cone was like a lethal weapon. It was like she would jump on you, and the cone was sharper than her teeth,
Sure. Yeah.
No, Mishka. Anyway, sorry about that.
No, it's all good. So, all right. So you were tinkering around and kind of writing your own stuff, aside from, learning a Beatles song or whatever. When was the first time that you performed in front of people?
Well, I did. I used to do some musical theater when I was really young. I did there was this camp that I went to when I was started when I was 7 or 8, and it was called Classical Kids, and it was in LA, and it was really cool, actually. Looking back on it, it was pretty I think it was a big deal for me because these two really awesome women took all these beautiful classical pieces, and they wrote songs to like a Chopin nocturne, and they would take 15 very famous and beautiful classical pieces. One of them was a really great pianist, and then they built them around a Greek myth. Mm-hmm. So I remember I did Perseus, but all the music was, beautiful classical piano music with lyrics that sort of told the story of the myth. So those were my first performances. And I really do think that that's kind of what gave me a little bit of a classical music bug, because I still really love classical music. Those were my first performances. And then my first time performing a song, was probably at some talent show or something at my school.
Okay.
I remember I didn't really perform anything like that where I was playing and singing at the same time until I was maybe 14 or 15. And it was pretty exhilarating. I still get nervous, but I remember being terrified then. And I think I was it just felt great after it was over,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Once you get to the end of it, you're like, okay, I did it.
Yeah, I did it. It's like climbing a mountain, it's especially for me, like I said, even still, there's an element of stage fright, and I've done it for over a decade now, of really being in front of people. And it's still, every night is different, because it's just if you're not feeling right, you have to keep doing it and push through. So that's a difficult mental game for sure.
Yeah. The crowd's going to still be there, whether you're feeling good or not.
Exactly. Yeah. Whether I'm there or not.
Yeah.
Totally.
So you said you didn't start playing in front of people really until you're in your teens. Was that with tell me about starting the band with your sister? Didn't you have a band with your sister when you were younger?
I did, yeah. So I had a band with my sister Barbara. It was called the Bell Brigade, and my senior year of high school, we started making demos together, and she had already been playing with a ton of people that I was a big fan of, and she was a really sought after drummer in LA. And,
really?
So when she was Yeah, very much so. Yeah, she was playing with Jenny Lewis at the time,
Oh,
and
wow.
Benji Hughes, and also a lot of just people in LA that have gone on to be like either amazing producers or amazing songwriters. Tons of just like a very cool scene of people. So when she was like, well, she heard a couple of my songs, and she was like, let's just start a band, and like we'll just merge our songs. And then weirdly, a year later, we got signed and we got a record deal, and it became a really real thing. I mean, we did like several years of like hardcore touring, and then we also ended up playing with a guy named Ray LaMontagne as his band, and then we also opened all the shows. So it was like a really grueling like 5 years of lots and lots of live performing. That band and project is now not a thing, but it's like great because my sister and I are both super busy and still work together on a ton of stuff. And so, that was probably my biggest learning curve, was that project.
Yeah. So you had songs already written, and your sister just happened to hear what you're messing around with, and she wanted to drum with you?
Totally. And she was writing a lot of songs too. And I just looked up to her. And so any song I would write, I would play for her. And then at a certain point, I think I started hitting enough of a stride where it was like, she was like, okay, this is cool, like, and she just like, it gave me a lot of confidence for her to like be, okay with me, like putting her songs, up with mine and letting them coexist,
Sure.
And then once we got our record deal, we then wrote almost the entirety of that first record was together.
Oh, cool.
So, and that was my first experience, like, collaborating, too. So.
Okay, nice. You said you guys were tour. You were. It was like a whole. Yeah, you were touring, opening up for bands and stuff. Tell me about like touring. You were a teenager at the time. Did your parents have to come with you? Like, how did that work?
No, so by the time we started touring, I was 20, I think.
Oh, okay.
Because I was 19 when we started. Like recording our first record, and then 20, about to turn 21. So by the time we got out on the road, I was like, I think there were a couple of shows where I like had to like wait outside until I played. But then once I turned 21, I was
in the clear.
My parents, my dad, he did touring when he was young too, and like my sister had already done a ton of tours, and like we had a label, so we were able to like rent a van and bring a band. And so it wasn't like, it was as legit as like that early of touring can be. And it was still like incredibly janky and like grueling. Yeah, I mean, those were just like incredibly like nostalgic times. It was crazy to be sort of grinding like that, like before I even knew how to like do anything, I barely even knew how to write a song, and I was like having to play it in front of people. So it was learning by fire for sure.
Yeah. What was the first show that you played with your sister as the Bell Brigade?
That's a good question. Oh, I remember. We played at a club in LA called El Cid, and we were opening up for, I think, our friend Inara George.
Okay.
And I think that was the first time we ever played together. My sister was like playing acoustic guitar, and then we like set up a weird like contraption for her to like with 2 kick drum pedals to play kick and snare with her feet while she was playing guitar.
Oh, wow.
And she was playing guitar, singing, and playing kick and snare with her feet. And that was like a totally awesome. I mean, it was so funny and great to watch. It was like watching somebody like on the Venice Boardwalk do a one-man band.
Yeah.
She was so sick at it. And so we did that actually for the first maybe like dozen shows. Oh, Mishka, get that out of your mouth. Sorry, my dog is just a total crazy person.
No problem.
So I'm gonna take her outside. So yeah, and then slowly she started just playing acoustic guitar, and we had a drummer, but she's an incredible drummer. So eventually she started just playing drums and singing, and that was sort of the most like exhilarating and like crowd pleasing versions of the shows, because she just ripped it apart. She was singing and playing and that's just so fun to watch a drummer like do that at the same time.
Yeah. I love seeing that. Yeah, where the bands have the drummer that's the singer. It's pretty cool.
Totally.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. So the Bell Brigade went for a while. You had touring. You put out a record. You were signed. From there, what was the next step for you musically? Is that when you started your solo stuff?
Yeah. So when I stopped that, I just sort of, I went immediately into just writing some solo stuff. I mean, I was pretty nervous because, I put kind of all my eggs into that basket. So I also started, talking with some publishers because I knew that I just wanted to diversify, and I knew that I would be down to write for other people and co-write and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And production was not really a thing yet it's something that I was I would love to do that, but I didn't know how to get my foot in the door. So, I started writing my own stuff and doing some, a lot of co-writing sessions and meeting a lot of people. Mm-hmm. And then once I had sort of finished a good batch of things, I met up with an old friend named Tony Berg, who produced my first solo record. And he, I played him some of those songs, and he was down to work on them. And meeting him and getting involved with him was an extremely pivotal, second wind of my musical life, because I was a little nervous stopping the band, like I said, and then he just introduced me to a whole other world. And he's also the person who got me into producing, because mm-hmm. He invited me in as a producer, and then he introduced me to this woman, Phoebe Bridgers, who he was working with, and then we co-produced her record, and that just really sort of changed my life as a collaborator, because it was the first thing I had ever done that had that kind of success. So, mm-hmm. After the Bell Brigade, it just sort of I think I went in a million different directions, maybe too many, but I think that's kind of what I love to do, and that's how I would like to keep it, which is just sort of master of none, just doing as much as possible and just trying to get better at everything.
Yeah. So from that Phoebe Bridgers production, or helping produce that album, is that what opened the doors for you to work with Manchester Orchestra and Kimbra and all these other artists?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that the Phoebe thing and my first record just introduced me to a whole other group of people. And, I think, it is. It's just you're climbing a big, long flight of stairs, one mm-hmm. step leads to the next. So I think that, fortunately and unfortunately, your work sort of speaks for you. So I think mm-hmm. that when something happens that somebody thinks is cool, it leads to a new sort of, connection. Sure. And, I do think that the Phoebe record was definitely a turning point for me to be able to just have it brought me a lot of confidence to have mm-hmm. worked on something really heavily that, seemed to be received incredibly well. So that was pretty amazing for me.
Yeah. Aside from, the Bell Brigade, I mean, did you feel like it kind of gave you some validity to producing, and like you said, confidence, but was that so you can say, hey, I've done this before, and here's proof of it.
Totally. Yeah. And also I think a lot of people, when they want to be producers, they have to grind in a way where they have to work on a lot of stuff that they don't even like, mm-hmm. because they just have to get and I just was so lucky that the first thing I got to be really called, because I co-produced the Bell Brigade stuff, so I had experience in the studio and things like that. But to be a producer on somebody else's project, and for it to be somebody like Phoebe, who's just a genius. I mean, she's I think one of the best songwriters around, uh-huh. and so I just feel it was kind of a really lucky thing. But yeah, it definitely just gave me a lot of confidence to know that I could do it, and that it didn't, it could have a life,
Yeah, yeah. And so tell me about putting together your first solo record. That was Slow Motionary. Is that the first one?
Yes, that's the first one.
Okay.
That was just meant to be these really short, piano vignettes, sort of Randy Newman-esque, 2-minute songs.
Yeah, I was gonna say a lot of the songs on the album, a few of them are like even under 2 minutes, a minute and a half.
Yeah, totally. I love short songs like that. Mishka, oh my God, my dog is just in the planter. She's just like fully in like the forest of my backyard. Mishka, please don't go in there. You just had a bath. Okay, yeah. So those songs are just very like short, trying to pack a punch with as little as possible. That was sort of the original idea. There's a couple of like more like standard like guitar folky songs on there.
Mm-hmm.
But it was sort of like an exercise in having like restraint, because everything that I had worked on before then was like pretty like trying to be extra energized or like have like the kitchen sink production wise, and
mm-hmm.
Tony and I were pretty adamant about this being like really sparse and
like stripped down,
and just honest and pure, So that was an amazing experience for me. I think it really taught me a lot about restraint, which is like now like I think the most important thing of like working on a record. It's like making sure that you have clarity and you're not overdoing anything.
Yeah. Do you feel like it's hard sometimes when you're producing to like not like overproduce something, like where you're listening to it so much and you're adding so much to it that it almost like destroys what you had originally? Does that make any sense?
100%. I mean, it's happened to me a million times where, you just, especially like when I think for me, like I play a lot of things and I like experimenting and I like recording. So, half the time you just get lost in like just having fun, like adding shit, you know?
Yeah.
But I think my process I've learned is to overproduce and then strip it back, because I feel like when you throw too much paint at it and like sort of like scrape away, it like leaves a weird texture, and it gives it like a different kind of 3D feeling, because there's like layers of things that like you kind of don't know how you can see through to them, and it's only because you were muting and like peeling away. You know what I mean? It's hard to describe. The visual that I always think of is like an oil painting that like you take like a knife to, or like your nails, and you just like you sort of scrape away and it leaves that texture. And I think musically in a track, like when you have too much stuff and then you mute what you thought was the most important thing, it leaves this like really like inside out version of the song or the section, and it just kind of surprises you, which is, like I said, the most important thing for me.
Yeah. So when you were producing, did you, like that first record, did you record that record at, you said your dad had a studio. Is that where you did it, or did you go to a different studio?
No, so Tony Berg, who produced it, he has had an amazing studio in his backyard, with like, just like 40 years worth of collecting amazing gear. And he has just the best taste in instruments and outboard gear, and he has an amazing API board. So we did that record there, and then the most recent record we also did at Tony's studio, but Tony has like greatly upgraded. He and a guy named Blake Mills, who's another one of my favorite sort of songwriters and producers, and a buddy of mine, they took over a studio called Sound City in LA. That's historic.
That's where they recorded Nevermind, and didn't Dave Grohl buy the board and stuff from there? Dave Grohl
did buy the board, and like totally, he made a whole documentary about it, and then, took out I think the most valuable thing in the studio. But it's cool. It brought the studio a lot of notoriety, and like, I mean, dude, he deserves it. Like the dude like made the most important record ever in that room. So like, he can take whatever he wants out of there. But so now Tony and Blake run Sound City, and we recorded this newest record En Garde there. And that was just an incredible experience, because, there's not only an incredible collection of gear between Tony and Blake, but there's an echo chamber, and there's a space for 2 EMT plates, and there's just, the quality and all the different rooms. There's like a big lobby that sounds incredible for drums and acoustic guitars and stuff. So there was just a lot more options and things to play with. So it was pretty fun.
When you're in that building, does it have like a different vibe to it? Like, can you feel the fact that like Rumors was recorded in there? Like, I don't know. Like, I feel it just going in there would be almost inspiring.
It's sacred. It's a little sacred. Yeah, totally. I mean, especially Studio A, which is not the room that I recorded in. I did mostly in B, because Blake was working on a bunch of different projects in A. But A, when you walk in, like, you just like the air in the room is just like sort of like placid and like serene in like a different way. And that's really, I think, what you want, because you just like want like sound to just travel as smoothly as possible. It's a very exquisite room. And the B room that I was in has a little bit more character and a little bit more grit. And so I think that's actually good for my palette of sounds, like just earthy, like darker tones. But, you know, both rooms are incredible. And yeah, like when you're in there, like you just know that there's been a very high bar set there. So there's, and on top of that, like working in a room next to Blake or Tony, it's like you want it to be worthy of the environment, you know?
Do you feel like if you would have recorded the record in Studio A, it would have been different?
That's a cool question. I do actually. And I think like the more like philosophical thing is like, I think that any room you're in, like I think I really like, the more I do this, the more I really believe in space and like where you are, because not only is it going to like just like drastically affect the sound, but it's just your environment just like is subliminally telling you everything. And so I think, you know, it's very possible if I would have worked more in Studio A, it might have sounded a little bit, there might have been like more high end or something, or more like crispy clarity, because that room just has a little bit more of that character. And, you know, I think that just where you are and setting up a vibe for yourself just physically like makes a huge sonic impact.
Yeah, like you were saying, it just has like that Studio B you're in had like the darker, like earthier tones to it, and you can definitely feel that in a record. Whereas if it was like a brighter room, like it's almost like you can tell just by hearing it.
Totally. The thing about Studio A that's maybe a little different is that you have an ability to. It's a room that's maybe 2 or 3 times as big. So you like with a drum sound, you're able to do this, like you can do like a huge, like just like cavernous sound, and you're sort of limited in B. Like you can still do that, but you have to figure out a way around it that's like less natural. Like in A, you just put the mics as far away as you can in the room, but in B, like you might have to go like a roundabout route to get that sound. And I do love being limited. Even though that room is not, I wouldn't call that a limitation. You know, it's like still one of the like a world-class studio. But
yes,
but
totally.
I feel like I like studios. I do like studios, no matter how nice or not nice they are, that just force you to like figure out a more creative way to do something. You know?
Yeah, totally. So on that new record, that you also worked with Phoebe on that record too, or she features on one of your songs?
Yes, she's on one of the songs. She sings like very featured on one song, and then I think she sings backgrounds on 2 others. And we were sort of in the middle of going back and forth with her record while I was making mine. I also co-produced her upcoming record, which is coming out in the summer.
Oh, okay.
And so that was pretty great, because we got to, you know, go back and forth. And, you know, if I would learn something while making my thing, I would, you know, maybe be able to apply a new experiment to her, or like a new plug-in on a sound, you know, and vice versa. You know, I think that was pretty cool to be switching gears back and forth. I think that's how I like to work now, is just like hopping between drastically different things, because it's just like, it makes it so everything has a little piece of everything else, you know?
So you were helping her write her record, and was she chiming in on yours as well then, as far as like the writing process went?
Well, I wasn't helping her write.
Just produce.
Definitely doesn't need any. Yeah, I was just producing, and so. But yeah, I mean, of course, like anytime I would play Phoebe something, like her opinion means the world to me. So I would always want to see. You know, I think there were even some songs on there that I was like, I don't know about this one. She's like, dude, no, it's just like shut up. It's cool. So she gave me confidence on a few things that I think I would have been maybe more self-critical about.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, this new record was extremely collaborative. I mean, I had a lot of people come in and play, a lot of people sing, a lot of the songs were co-written with other people. So it was like kind of like a collective effort.
That's really incredible. Were you planning to tour on the album and stuff? Are you still touring, or just mainly, writing and producing?
Well, yeah, I would say my life has just like, which is my choice. Like I like this more, like just being a studio person and like making stuff instead of performing stuff. It's just much more my speed. But I was hoping to do a little bit of touring, but then of course all this stuff happened, and it's kind of a blessing in disguise because I get to stay home and keep making stuff and be with my wife, and this is what I prefer. But I'm hoping that when this stuff blows over, that I can get out there and at least do a little bit, because it would be fun,
Yeah.
So we'll see. I mean, I wouldn't be like devastated if like it, the cycle was over by the time things were. I mean, I'd be more devastated just the fact that COVID would be going that long. But
sure,
I hope so. I really hope I can do a little bit, because it's part of it. It's part of making a record, even though it's probably the least important part to me personally. But it's like getting out there and sharing it in that other way is a big deal.
Mm-hmm. Instead of, like you said, you did the touring thing, you do enjoy playing live, but like with this quarantine, have you been writing a lot, being stuck at home? Are you?
Well, it's weird because I've actually been really busy and been working with a lot of people, like sending stuff back and forth, and that's been like really fruitful and fun. But at the same time, it's like, I think I said this at the beginning of the call, every day is so different mentally. So it's like some days I feel really inspired and like really happy to just be alone in my studio and like be like having the space to just take my time and create anything without like much pressure. But then another day I'm like, dude, I can't do anything today. I just like feel like totally drained and uninspired. And then that has like a weird effects, because you're like, why would I feel drained? Because I'm not even doing that. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's like,
totally.
It's a weird cycle. And so I feel like the first few weeks or even the first month of quarantine, like it was a roller coaster, like musically, because I was feeling really extreme, either really inspired or really uninspired. And either one would scare me, because I would go, if I'm feeling great, I'm like, oh, I'm like, can I maintain this? And if I'm feeling shitty, it's like, is this going to last for the rest of the week? And so I'm just trying really hard to just accept each day creatively. And like, if I get in there and I'm just not feeling it, like I'm just trying to stop and like go inspire myself with something else, or like, hang with the new pup, or just trying to be a little bit more lenient with my like self-induced pressure to like make stuff.
Sure. That makes total sense. Are you doing any of the like live streaming stuff on like Instagram, or do you have any ambition to do that?
Well, I did something last night for Spin magazine. It was like they do these little lullaby sessions. So I did 2 songs and a magic trick.
Oh,
so
a magic
on my
trick.
Instagram, I used to be really into magic when I was a kid, and I still remember a bunch of tricks. I was like very, very good. And so on my Instagram, like the first couple of weeks of quarantine, I was doing a trick every day.
That's
and that was
awesome.
Really fun, but I sort of ran out of tricks. And so last night I sort of recycled one. And so, yeah, occasionally I'll do some stuff like on the internet, but not much. I'm not like the most active Instagram person.
I feel you, man. I feel you. I was going to ask you too. You said you're talking about magic tricks, and I know there's this place. I don't know if you've been there in LA, where it's like a magic. Like you have to be a part of like this club, and you get to go in and like.
The Magic Castle.
Yes. Have you been there before?
Yeah, totally. The Magic Castle is so rad. It's awesome. I mean, it's like, unfortunately, like you have to be invited, which is, I guess, kind of cool and fun. But like,
yeah,
you need to either be a member or invited by a member. But it's also like, fairly expensive once you're in there, like to like have a drink. But it's worth it because the magicians that go there are like world class, like straight up, like that's kind of like it's like performing at the Hollywood Bowl for a magician. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
totally.
It's a pretty prestigious place. I've definitely been there a few times. I love it. I'm not a member. I went more when I was a kid. I've gone maybe like once or twice as an adult, and it's fun. And especially for me, because I do really love like the craft of it. Like, as dorky as it is, it's such like incredible architecture.
It's
awesome.
Awesome.
Like somebody who's like reverse engineering what they want to happen with a deck of cards. I mean, that's really like a pretty incredible like feat of like design, you know?
Sure.
So I do really like it. And so, yeah, dude, if you haven't been to the Magic Castle, figure out a way to get in. It's a really fun night.
Yeah, a buddy, actually, my son's friend, her dad is a member of it. So he like when they would do school parties and stuff when he was in elementary school, like her dad would always come and that he would do magic tricks for the kids. And he was telling me about it. He's like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna take you guys. Like I'm a member of this place and it's called the Magic Castle. It's in LA." And he was telling us about it, but I'd never heard of anyone else, you know, until you brought up magic doing magic tricks that it would have heard
That's
of
totally
it.
going to be me with my kids.
Yeah.
I'm definitely going to be the dad, like doing like not only throwing my kid's birthday party, but performing magic. Like hire myself as the magician.
Yeah, that's what he would do. It was pretty rad. Like he would show up and he'd do tricks and party tricks. Like if you'd be hanging out with him, he'd be asking people like numbers and he'd figure out. It was really crazy. He was super good at it.
It's great, man. I love it. It's the best. It just brings a lot of joy. That's what I really love about it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny too. Like you can really learn a lot about a person too. Like if the way they respond. Like if somebody's like really like adamantly like upset at being fooled, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
That says a lot about somebody. And also like if somebody's really excited by it, it says another thing. You know, somebody's open to being happy, you know?
Totally. Well, thank you, Ethan, for so much for chatting with me today. I really appreciate it.
Totally, man. Really nice to talk to you.
I have one more question. I wanted to know if you have any advice for aspiring artists.
Advice for aspiring artists. I think being well-rounded and being interested in all art, you know, like watching movies, reading books, going to museums, seeing shows. I just think finding inspiration not only from your medium is really important. It's something that requires like effort and like it's like exercising to like step away from what you're obsessed with and like look at somebody else's obsession. But I think that, you know, just finding passion everywhere and seeing like learning from other people is key, and not being too competitive. You know, it's really hard to not be, but you know, being healthy competitive, being competitive with yourself is really the ultimate goal, because it's very easy these days to stack yourself up against everybody else, but you're going to get paralyzed by that. So just like focus on getting better and like learning from people instead of competing with them.